Lots of people like to predict and think they know when a recession is going to happen, but most of the time, we don't really know when a recession exactly starts until after the fact, where we can look back using 2020 vision and say, yes, this is the exact moment the recession did happen. But there will be signs, and I believe right now is one of those signs. And the sign that hit me was credit limit decreases. So what's going on? Recently, I've gotten multiple emails from different types of banks, especially from American Express and Capital One, saying that if I didn't do a certain task, if I didn't do this, then they would close down my credit card, which is actually fairly generous compared to some other stories that you hear out there where other people get the same email, but instead of saying, oh, if you just do this, we're just going to cut your credit limit. There's nothing you can do. We're just going to be doing it. Some people even get their accounts shut down. So why is this happening? Credit limits are a liability to the bank. They can give you a large credit limit, maybe like $20,000. Maybe you don't use it all right now, and someday when maybe there's a bad financial hardship, maybe a recession, maybe a lot of people lose their jobs, they're afraid that people are just going to be using their credit cards to the max and just defaulting and having delinquencies on them. And ultimately, the banks have to foot the bill. It's kind of like what happened with the Apple Card. Even though the Apple Card, I would say, has an application success when it comes to Goldman Sachs and the Apple Card's financial side, it tends to not be that great. According to a lot of reports, a lot of people who have the Apple credit card who probably shouldn't have the Apple credit card because there are so many defaults, so many delinquencies, and it's just too much. And therefore, that's why they're trying to sell the Apple card. Same thing when it comes to a recession. And especially according to this news clip, a lot of people are being really delinquent on their credit cards, and credit scores have been falling faster than the Great Recession, the recession that happened in 2008.
And today, FICO says there's an even bigger drop this year. As you mentioned, the biggest since 2009 during the Great Recession. Credit scores, they're still pretty high, moving in the wrong direction, in part because more and more Americans are falling behind on their bills. FICO says that delinquency rates are at or near the highest level since 2009 on car loans, credit cards, and also on personal loans as well.
But also, maybe nothing nefarious is actually happening. So credit limits and loans aren't an infinite source, right? There's regulations behind it, and usually that comes into how much capital that bank has is how much they can give out to people. So it's just maybe, hey, we'll take some of that credit limit back and give it to the people who are actually needing it and using it. Maybe a lot of applications have been coming through. We need that credit limit back so we can offer more cards to more people, make more off transaction fees, and maybe it's just a simple thing. But honestly, I really doubt it's a normal thing because I haven't had this many emails, especially all at once, since the pandemic. And it's not only me that's affected by it. I've been talking to a lot of other credit card content creators, some of you all from the credit card community, and we all get hit by these letters all of a sudden. It's kind of weird. And if this is the case, there's also a possibility for you all that are applying for new cards, it might start getting harder to be approved for new cards. So that's definitely something to keep in mind when you're applying for credit cards. It might be a good time to just garden during this time. So that's my 2 cents on it. But what exactly happened to me and how did I combat it, or what happened when I didn't? So this first started off with Capital One. On the Savor card, they were trying to decrease the credit limit, or at least just review the credit limit. So basically it says, we're writing to let you know about an upcoming account review. Over the last several months, the highest balance on this account has been significantly lower than your credit limit. Because of this, your credit limit could be decreased following this review. Which is kind of crazy because I'd even use the Savor card to its maximum limit, so I don't really know what they're talking about. I think at most I usually just put like $2,000 on this card. It's just really my entertainment and grocery spending card. There's only so much money and transactions that I can put onto this card. If your credit limit decreases as a result of the review, we'll notify you and make sure your credit limit is significantly above your highest balance from the previous 2 years. The second email that I got was from American Express, and this was for my Blue Cash Everyday card, one of my favorite cards that I love to keep on hand. I really don't use it that much, maybe $1,000 at max, but I still use it for a lot of the benefits like the Disney Plus and Hulu subscription, and just getting that 3% back on all online shopping is pretty useful to me. But this one was kind of interesting. They didn't even give me a chance. They just said, hey, we're just letting you know that we're decreasing your credit limit to $1,000. I'm like, all right. And giving me a cash advance of 200. And I've never taken out a cash advance, so that didn't really bother me, but $1,000 for a credit limit is kind of limiting, especially if I decide to buy anything more than $100. That credit utilization is probably going to be pretty high. But then American Express attacked another credit card, but this time they actually gave me a chance to figure out what to do with this card. So this was for my Blue Business Plus, and what it says, your account is being reviewed for a possible preset spending limit addition and or reduction. And then they gave me the option, if I paid $2,350 by a specific date, then they won't cancel or do anything to this credit card. They'll just leave it the same. Which is kind of crazy because I've only had that balance on this card for just a month, just during the grace period. So I was kind of curious, if I went ahead and just paid down the whole thing or just even paid off this amount, would my credit limit still be affected by this change? So I went off and paid down the Blue Business Plus. After a couple months, nothing happened. My credit limit is still set, so that's all I had to do, was just pay off that amount or even more of that amount, and nothing will happen. However, when it came down to Blue Cash Everyday, they did give me the option to call them by a specific date and have that credit limit reevaluated. I was kind of busy at the time, so I just kind of left it alone. I figured, in a couple years, maybe I'll just, increase it slowly over time. When it came to Capital One, it did say that if I called this number by this specific date, that they will reevaluate or cancel the credit limit review. I kind of wanted to see what would happen if I didn't call that number, if my credit limit would stay the same. However, you are hit by this, just go ahead and call the number. You don't even have to talk to a person. It's just through an automated response. Just more or less go through the touch tones and then they'll cancel the review. But I wanted to go ahead and see what would happen, and I probably regret it. So I used to have on the Savor card a credit limit of $15,000. Now, after the review, they decreased it to $5,000. So it's still enough for what I need it for. So definitely my recommendation, always call the numbers that they have listed so you can protect your credit limit. It's probably not worth ignoring and just seeing what they'll do. And some other things to help retain your credit limit is make sure that you're putting a reoccurring charge on your credit cards, even ones that you aren't using. Just go ahead and maybe put an automatic payment, maybe from Amazon. Maybe you can put like a Dunkin' or a Starbucks, whichever thing that you use, to make sure that you keep activity on that credit card. The banks are like, oh, okay, so you're still using this credit card, so we don't need to close it on you, which I have heard instead of just a credit limit decrease, they'll just go ahead and go like, hey, your account's closed. So definitely you want to protect your credit card and your credit limit. Consider doing an automatic reoccurring payment per month instead of just letting that credit card sit. Another tip is to avoid large balances when you can. Now, I couldn't really help it with my Blue Business Plus. I had some business spend that I needed to do, so it was a little bit more for that month, and I think that's probably what triggered the credit limit review. But if you can keep it most of the time under 30%, banks can say, oh, okay, so you're not trying to, use all this credit limit and just ditch the country. Just run away and then have the banks deal with it, or even default on your balances, because it does cost banks a lot. So it's a risk assessment. They have to figure out, hey, should we actually give this person this much of a credit limit in the risk that they don't pay it back at all? And the last tip that I can recommend to you is go into the settings on your bank and then update your income. Always update that income when you can, because banks like to see, hey, this person has a higher income and therefore they're more likely to be able to pay it, and we don't need to do that credit limit review because there's probably a good chance that person can pay it. So it's always a good practice to update that income, and also it's probably a better chance that you'll be approved for more credit cards within that bank, because a lot of that credit limit that you're being approved for is mostly correlated with the credit limit that you receive. Of course, if someone is going to have more money, the more credit limit they're probably going to need, and the more likely chance that they're going to be able to pay it off. So it all comes full circle in the benefits of the bank, right? But yeah, those are some things that you can do when you receive these emails, receive these letters, and I wouldn't freak out too much about it. This happened the same time when there was an economic downturn during the pandemic. It was a lot harder to get approved for credit cards. A lot of people saw their credit cards either decreased or just canceled altogether. So just keep these tips in mind, and I think we can survive this together. And I'll see you later.